Welcome back to the Hauntsville Groupcast. I'm Anthony.
Hi, I'm John Collins. I'm a horror writer from Long Island, New York, and I have a new book coming out next week, and hopefully we can talk about that and a lot of other spooky things.
I can't wait. John, thank you so much for joining us on this episode. I've been dying to get you on here since your first book release, and I'm so happy to catch you on this new book. Um, there's so many levels where you are the type of writer who writes for me. Like you just check all of my boxes. So like I said, I've been dying to get you on here since the Leeds Point Horror.
Well, thank you. I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to be here. It's been a long time coming.
Do you want to start by telling us a little bit about this new book you've got coming out?
Yeah, absolutely. The book is a short story collection. It's called "The Altars in Abandoned Houses." It comes from. It's being published by Winding Road Stories, and it comes out. The release date's this coming Tuesday. We're premiering it at StokerCon in Pittsburgh, so I'm really excited about that. Also, a little terrified. To be honest, a little terrified. It's 12 short stories. Well, to be honest, it's 11 short stories in one novelette. One story, one. There's a real short flash piece at the end. The story before that, initially I was hoping to make it like 5,000 words, but it ended up being like 8,000 and change. So technically, it's a novelette. But I hope people pick it up, and I hope people enjoy it. I had I had a great time putting it together, so I'm hoping that comes through when people read it.
StokerCon is a huge deal for the place that you choose to launch your new book. That's amazing. I'm so excited for you.
Thank you.
For anybody
That
who
was my
doesn't
that
know,
was my publisher's idea.
it's a
Yeah.
great idea, and I think it's going to serve you so well as the launching and jumping off point for this book. For anyone who doesn't know, StokerCon is a massive event for horror writers. It takes place every year. The location changes, but it's hosted by the Horror Writers Association. And we get some incredible speakers. We get some incredible workshops and opportunities for writers of every level to come out and celebrate other writers. Um, we get debut novels like John's here. We get there's the Stoker Awards themselves, which
Yep.
is dreams, goals, right?
It's the Oscars of horror fiction.
It really is. And attached to the Stokers is also the Final Frame Film Festival,
Yep.
which is incredible. We get some incredible films in through there. So I'd highly recommend anybody who hasn't heard of StokerCon or the Horror Writers Association to start looking into that now. I know that StokerCon this year is doing both virtual and in person. So again, at any level of the industry, you want to get tuned into what's happening in horror, check out some of these virtual panels as well.
Oh, absolutely. Some of the guests they have this year, guests of honor, is just like Billy Martin, who used to write under the name Poppy Z Bright, is one of the guests, and I've I'm a fanboy back when he was published as on small press, so I'm like chomping at the bit to talk with him. But it's also one of the most friendliest group of people I've ever been around in my life. I get anxiety over a lot of people being around me. Like people that interacting with a lot of people at once. The friendliest group of people you'll ever meet. It's pretty weird considering they're all right about monsters and demons and mutilation, and they're just like, "You want a cookie? Sure, why not?" They're just awesome. They're
I
just
say
awesome.
it all the time. I've got a background in children's entertainment. I've got a background in horror, and the horror people are some of the friendliest, most welcoming, and most supportive people that I've ever been connected to. I love our HWA network. Everybody in there is fantastic, and that's how we met.
Yeah, yeah. In the collection, the dedication is to several members of the HWA. It was a writing group that I got involved with, a critique group, and this book wouldn't exist without my participation in that group. We still get together, and we still work with each other, make each other better writers. But what I was when I started and what I got up to now, and I'm still working to be better, but this book wouldn't exist without those five gentlemen. So I mean, when you pick up and you see it, and Anthony, you'll really like, oh, I know some of those guys. You'll be immediately like, hey, yeah, I met him, I know him. But yeah, it's just great way to network with people. I mean, I don't want to turn this into an HWA commercial, but if you're thinking about writing or you're involved somewhat adjacent to writing, it would benefit you greatly to jump in and check it out.
Absolutely couldn't agree more. And even just jumping right out the gate here, the introduction to your new book is written by Robert Piotone, who has
Yep.
been on the podcast before. He's a fellow HWA member. He's a two-time Stoker winner. That's an incredible boost for you and your writing. He sang nothing but your praises in the opening of this book. And let me tell you, it doesn't even do it justice. I
Oh,
don't say this lightly, but I want to say 80% of the way through. Um, and every story that I've read has just lingered with me. You have this um Bradbury-esque command of your prose, and I would like it takes something special to capture these aspects of autumn and Halloween and your scene descriptors. They just really took me back there.
thank you very much. I appreciate that. First off, Rob is not only a good friend. He's If Rob ever decided he wanted to stop being a author and want to be a publicist, I think he'd make more money because he's just he's been a champion of my stuff for a long time, and it I can't thank him enough for that. But yeah, I was a little touched reading that introduction. I mean, he threw some names in there. I'm like, really? You putting me in with him? Really? Oh, come on. But he means it with love, and I do appreciate that. Yeah, I enjoy setting. I enjoy setting. I enjoy atmosphere. Um, I mean, as we talk, I think you'll get a sense that I like all aspects of horror. But when it comes to my own personal writing, heartfelt is pretty key to most of the things I write. If I don't feel it here, I'm really you see the difference. You see the difference.
It's so true, and I always go by "No tears in the writer, no tears in the reader," and every one of these stories that I've read so far, as much as they lean into the fun of the horror, and I love the settings you've created, and sure, I'm here for a great monster time, but there's always this heartfelt kind of gut punch at the end of these.
Yeah, it's for something that has some really dark subject matter. I want it to be fun. I mean, I enjoy a good like a Hereditary as much as any horror fan does, but I enjoy Creepshow more. I get that nostalgic glee that I just can't shake it. I don't want to shake it. I don't. This is supposed to be fun stuff. You should, with the way the world has been going, you should be able to lose it. If someone says I lose myself in Friday the 13th Part 8, more power to you. I'm happy for you. And with fiction, I want people to enjoy it. I want people to come back and see what I'm doing next, even if like the subject matter itself, like I don't know about that one, but goddamn, I enjoy that. That's the greatest compliment I can get. So I'm so happy to hear that.
I really have to say, after every one of these, I think a part of what's taking me a little bit longer to finish reading this is after every one of these, I have had to take a beat and just go, wow, like that's a lot to take in. When you and I started talking about this and coming onto this episode, I asked you if there were any common threads or themes throughout, and you had mentioned grief and loss, and it's so prevalent, but you handle it in such a careful way that it's very palatable. It's very, um, like I said, it takes you a beat to just sit there and say, "I just experienced that." Not only did I read it, did I witness it, I experienced it.
Yeah, grief is, and for most of the stories in there, grief and loss is a common thread. Everybody, it's one of those things that everyone's going to go through. If you have any connection with a person at all, you're going to go through at one point or another in your life. And over the last couple of years, I've had my share, and it's I deal with it with I deal with it with humor and and a bit of tears. I genuinely think that grief is one of the healthiest things that you can experience because I can't remember which actor said it, but it was perfect. Grief is just unexpressed love that you didn't get to share with that person. And my family had some losses in the last couple of years that hit home. And when I'm finished with, I mean, when you get to the last story, I don't know if you're ready yet. When you get to the last story, you'll see exactly what I'm saying because it ties it all in really, I think, nicely. My editor, she kind of yelled at me. The great Summer Cannon, by the way, wonderful writer and editor. She goes, you really messed me up with the other stories, and then God damn it, you made me cry at the end. I was like, yeah. But I genuinely think for the best kind of fiction, at least a fiction for me. I read a lot of fiction, and some stories I'm like, yeah, that's great, and then I move it to the side and I move on to something else. I'm always reading, but the stuff that really hits home, like I mentioned, Poppy Bright, his first book, Lost Souls. When I read that book, it just hit a spot where it was a very it was a kind of a lonely time in my life. I was still trying, I was like that kid that left high school and trying to become an adult, and like the few high school friends I had, they went their way, and I'm kind of like traversing everything on my own. And that book hit it for me. So it you know the stuff that I want to write and the stuff I want people to resonate with me is the stuff like where they read something like, yeah, that happened in my neighborhood. That kind of thing happened. And they can, not even necessarily happen to them, but they were at least adjacent to somebody else that went through it. And that's why I think it leaves a longer lasting impression.
I couldn't agree more. And I think when it comes to your writing style and the exploration of grief and the exploration of Halloween, because a good majority of these are Halloween stories,
Yeah.
um, there's this communal element to all of those things. It's how we experience them with the people around us. And you really capture that. And I do want to delve into some of these stories. And obviously, I don't want to spoil anything for anybody who's about to read this. So you let me know if we're going too far at any point or if there's anything you don't want to explore just yet. But
No, no, no.
uh, let's specifically start somewhere like suite number 3. I think that's maybe the 5th or 6th story in here. And first of all, I have to tell you and our listeners, you did something with a very well known and familiar creature that I have never seen done before.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I once again, that was, the key part to that story is the relationship between the two characters. Um, I wrote that story without giving too much away. I wrote that story because there was a call for that creature, and I was just kind of like, well, can something originally be done with that at this point? And I was thinking about it, and there's another story in the beginning. It's I can say this much: it's a story set in a mortuary.
Hmm.
And the first story in the collections also starts off in a mortuary. I grew up down the block from a very successful mortuary in Salem, New York, and it was like a lingering presence in our neighborhood. I mean, it wasn't a creepy house or anything like that. The very modern building. I mean, but just the idea, as a little kid, a horror loving little kid, and that's what I was. It just fascinated me, and so and when I've only been there for no, I was there for 2 weeks as an adult, never there as a kid for a week or anything like that. But it was one of those places where it's just like, as an imaginative little kid, you're wondering all sorts of weird things are going, and then you see the movie Phantasm, and it makes it more crazy. And reality is just a business. It's a business that caters to people, and helps people move on with their lives. But as a little, imagine a little kid, he's just like, what's going on there? So I never really lost that. Every time I see, because the mortuaries are everywhere. You see them all over the place, and the little morbid party is always kind of like, what's going on in that back room back there, and all that. And most of it, in 99.9999% of the time, it's just normal business as usual. But yeah, that was a fun story to write. I enjoyed that one. I hope out of all the news stories in there, that's probably my favorite. I hope it resonates with people as much as it did with me writing it.
I really think that it's going to, because again, right off the jump, just as a horror lover, you do something new with a creature that we're all maybe way too familiar with at this point. Um, but going back to the connection, yeah, you mentioned, the two characters who are central focus during that. There's a very strong bond between them, but then you also have the connection to the deceased, and you really in just a few pages paint out a beautiful life between those two characters' connections, and then you hammer it home by bringing the deceased's family in at the end. um and we're really left with this mixed bag of emotions, because based on the creature we're conditioned to feel a certain type of way, but based on everything we just learned, we have to grapple with that. And
Yeah.
I think that's why this is one of the stories I'm really excited for everybody to get a chance to read.
The one thing I thought about that, and one thing when I was writing that, because I always start everything with kind of an image, just like, I don't do much note taking or, outlining, at least for the short stories. Um, but the one thing I thought about a lot, and because it did happen to me, is when you're friends with one person, and you have a third person in that group that might be the glue that holds that whole relationship together. And when that person passes away, that friendship kind of struggles to stay. I think it's happened to anybody who has a decent sized social circle, and it happened to me. And I don't, it wasn't any kind of falling out or anything like that. It's just me and I'll leave these two people nameless. When the glue of our relationship passed away, me and me and the other guy who was left realized there's not much holding us all together anymore. And I always thought that was very melancholy. And I really, I wanted to play with that a little bit. So that's how that whole thing started to work. And that's, once I added that element, it just felt more natural.
Yeah, you really humanize the creatures in your stories, and I think that's very important. And as you're saying with this, losing the glue of a dynamic, I can unfortunately relate. But that then brings in the community element of this, where you and I can now bond on this level, talking about this unfortunate thing that we can both relate to, and we have this fictional story to kind of escape into and process some of that emotion and that grief.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. It's, I think I think the most relatable fiction for anybody, especially in this genre, is relatability to the characters and their relationships. You don't have to necessarily like them. I hate that. I hate that to all the character was so unlikable. But did you believe the character? That's where I get it. Because you're not gonna like everybody. You're not gonna you know you and I've met in person a couple of times. We've talked more during Stoker meeting, HWA meetings than anything. But you give me the impression that if it's someone that isn't your flavor, you're just very polite about it. Hey, how you doing? And then you move on to wherever you're going. I'm the same way. I don't see any need to be cruel to anybody, but there's just some people that just don't click, and but they're still believable. And the same relationship is with fictional characters. There are plenty of books. There are plenty of books that by the time I'm done, I'm like, I hate that goddamn character, but I believe them. That's where like something like American Psycho lost me. American Psycho had me about 60%, and then the character just became so unbelievable, even though it's pretty much all in his mind. It's just like, okay, this is why I don't enjoy this book anymore. So I think believability is much more important than likability.
Absolutely agreed. And I think you also demonstrate that really well in Strange Alters later, because I hate him. The main
Yeah.
character in that story, he's very believable. I know people like him, but
Mhm.
damn, I am ready for what's going to happen in that story by the time that it happens.
I'll tell you a quick little funny story about that. I submitted that story to a writer group, and everyone more or less got it except one guy. He's like, "Well, that character is just so nasty." I'm like, "Yeah, that's the point." It's
Uh-huh.
just like he's supposed to be that. Like wasn't like he was saying it like he was talking about the characters like they were all extensions of me, and I'm like, "Yeah, I'm not like that." I'm like, "Yeah, but he's so nasty." I'm like, "Yeah, that's the point." But hopefully, as you just said, believably nasty.
Yeah.
Oh,
And I think the correlation to American Psycho, like he's kind of a similar arrogant type character, but you stay in the realm of believability. And I think you really hammer that home by adding in his best friend, who is even more believable, and we really start to feel for.
the best friend, honestly, that one was a lot of me. If anything, any character in there is me, that might be the one that's most like me because I was that way. I was 18, 19. It was just like once again, like I said with Lost Souls, just trying to find my way and trying to find my footing. And yeah, yeah,
You manage to take these really sincere interactions. I think that's what really makes your characters believable and relatable, because you kind of take a beat away from the events at hand, so to speak, so that characters can have these very real moments with one another before jumping straight back into the fray of what's happening. I mean, the two of them in particular, they take a nice beat aside before things really get real, and that is what kind of escalates the situation.
yeah. I think in a lot of ways, we're all defined by our actions, but we're also almost as well defined by the people we share those actions with. And you could be the nicest guy in the world, but if you hang out with a bunch of shitheads, am I allowed to curse?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. If you hang out with a bunch of shitheads, you're going to be viewed as a shithead. And you know, everybody, male, female, whatever, everyone had that one friend. Everyone had that one friend that like, yeah, he was fun. He or she was fun back in the day, but oh, I couldn't be with them now. I just, my life is not at that point anymore. And I going on a simple car ride at night, you know, there's enough danger just with all the morons on the road just driving like lunatics to add other external things coming in. Just it can make for a very interesting reading. I love road stories. I
You've
love roads.
got two or three in here.
One, two. I'm gonna say two, but there might be a third there.
As far as I've gotten, I think two. Yeah, I love them because the story has to keep going because it's on a trajectory. There is a destination. And
Yep.
I think in Along for the Ride, which you open on, which is the other mortuary story in here, you really have that momentum going. Like we come off of Robert's introduction straight into a real time crunch. And I love monsters with rules, and to open out the gate with a time crunch and a monster with rules, and that kind of don't look back, don't second guess yourself situation. Um it's a really strong opening.
Thank
It
you.
makes me along for the ride.
That's my little love letter to old Universal horror films. I love those movies. I love angry villagers with pitchforks. I love all that stuff. And I it's not necessarily it's not Frank. Frankenstein's monster or Dracula. But I like to play with that kind of universe, and I, I I I used to think I would never write about monsters or supernatural because the bad ones would just like the bad ones would all of a sudden just throw some haphazard rule in the last 10 pages. Like that's how you're killing the thing. Like, come on. But if you can, I think if and I'm speaking for all the good writers out there, all the other writers out there, you know, they establish their rules, at least in their head, to follow through with the story. Like one person who's excellent at that, mutual friend of ours, Jim Chambers. Yeah,
Absolutely.
even if he doesn't even if he doesn't spell out the rules for you, you know when he was writing it, he had the rules in mind for what he was going to do. And to me, that just that you know you're as a reader, you're thinking, okay, he has boundaries here. He may not be telling me what they are, but he's going to follow them. All this, all of a sudden someone pulls out a magic charm out of a Lucky Charms box, and that's going to kill the monster. It's like, well, where was the Lucky Charms box in the beginning of the story? What are you talking about? So I always loved because like the Universal monsters, they had their rules.
Yeah.
They had their rules, and they stuck with them. It's when they got to the Hammer films, where all of a sudden they're impaling Dracula with a wagon wheel. It's like, where did that come from? I enjoy that story a lot. That story was a lot of fun because that was for a Halloween anthology that came out a couple of years ago, and by and large, people seem to enjoy it. So, which makes me happy.
It really is a fun ride, especially to open up a collection like this with. I'm glad you bring up Universal and movies like that because that's where I really think that the way that you delve into your building of atmosphere really carries through. There is not a single one of these that I've read so far that I wouldn't want to see adapted into uh its own movie or a creep show episode or just I want to see them brought to life because it's so vivid in your pages that I'm really, like I said, I'm experiencing these stories because you lead us in with all of our senses. One along for the ride, you open up on giving us, yes, this is going to be autumnal, October, Halloween. It's damp. I have a feel for the type of town that they're in. I've got a feel for what kinds of characters these are, and even without you delving into their backstories, I can kind of tell the lives that they lived up until this moment based on how they treat each other.
Yeah.
And like you said with the mortuary, it really is like small towns talk. And this small town, you have some members of the community who have some rules that need to be followed in order for this to be a successful burial.
Yeah, I think one thing, and I think this helps me with setting atmosphere, is um not only your character are your characters your protagonist or antagonist or whatnot, but like the buildings, like if you read Salem's Lot, the town of Salem's Lot is a character. Same thing with it. Derry is a character. You know, and I've always like my favorite part of Salem's Lot, which is my favorite book of all time, but it's the interludes in the town where you're just going over like a brief chapter of what's going on in the town before, during, and after. I love those things, and King did. I mean, obviously King does it great. Of course he does. But like, when I find a writer now that does it, oh my god, I just glom onto him. I'm just on their back like a leech. Let's like bring more to me, and I just found myself doing that more and more. Um, my first my first stories that I got published, which some of them are in this collection, um, they were they were okay, but I didn't know rules for basic creative writing, grammar, and things like that. It took a lot of trial and error. Thank God for people who post about it on Facebook and stuff, because I was picking up tips from, oh, you're supposed to do that. Oh, okay. And I would look it up, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm supposed to do that. And but I love when a town like Summer and Night by Dan Simmons.
I'm not
The town,
familiar.
fabulous. It's my favorite book of his, and he's got a lot of good books. He's got a lot of problematic books as well, but that book in particular, you believed that town. You believed that town totally, and that town was a character. It's just I love when that happens. Like I said before, like road stories. The terrain is the terrain can be the character. Like The Hills Have Eyes wouldn't work if they weren't in the desert.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
But yeah, I that to me sometimes is more fun than writing people. To be quite honest, there are times like when I'm working on a character, I'm like, yeah, I said that about him already. Okay.
I mean, you can really tell in each of these stories how much you love setting the atmosphere because, like I said, it really shines through. And there are times where it starts to feel like this is a cohesive, interconnected world, where I have to second guess, like, is this the same mortuary? Are they near each other? Does one road lead to the other? Um, and I think the fact that it all takes place, like I said, most of these stories take place on Halloween, um, also really makes it feel connected because you have that common thread between them, where it kind of feels like all of this is happening on one bad night.
I can see that. I can see it. I mean, it wasn't intentional, like because, like I said, six. Well, no, I don't know if I said six of the stories in here are reprints, and they were written over a span of several years. Um, I, the Halloween thing is not only do I obviously enjoy Halloween, I still do as an adult. Just not the way I did as a kid. It's also very nostalgic for me. It's also I grew up in Sayville, New York, and Halloween at that time growing up was a big deal. It was a really big deal, and it's just a little bit of nostalgia for me. And I'm working on something now that takes place at the end of summer. I find I'm not a summer person by and large. Well, mainly because I work outside during my day job. I do a lot of stuff outside, and the humidity and all that's just not it's not fun for a fat guy, to be quite honest. But I like the cooler. I like winter into spring. Regrowth. Rebirth, and I like summer into fall. And if I was to try to write something that was like dead of winter, I would get lost because especially when you're here, you saw the winter we had.
Oh
We didn't
yeah.
see, we didn't see the ground for 3 months, and so like that just doesn't do it for me. I need to see. I like the changing of the seasons. I like the regrowth. I like seeing my trees with green leaves now is wonderful. But I also like watching them change in the autumn. So I'd like to say that I got Halloween out of my system just to give someone else something different to read in the future, but I can't promise that.
I'm glad that you haven't, because as a big lover of Halloween myself, again, your writing really speaks to me.
Thank you.
So, John, you mentioned that some of these stories are reprints. Would you want to guide us a little bit through where some of their history lies? Where can people find some of these stories previously? What was your history with them in their first iterations versus what's changed in their Space and Alters?
The whole collection kind of started because a few of the stories were published online magazines. Halloween Candy was in the Sirens Call e magazine, and a few other places. And a couple of them went out, and they're like went under. They're not, however you say that, they're not continuing the magazine anymore. So I don't really know what happens to the domain, but a couple of stories actually got lost in the ether. Luckily, I had the files. So I don't like submitting. I hate submitting. It's not that I don't play well with others. I'm impatient, and sometimes when you submit, you could be waiting 6 months to get a rejection. It's just like, Yeah, I could have. I wouldn't mind so much if they were like, okay, we allow multiple submissions, because I should be able to find a home somewhere else in that 6 months if possible.
I couldn't agree more. Some of the chokeholds that some of these magazines or publications have on authors and their writing, it's a little too much, especially for some of the like smaller indie presses. Like we're all trying to get our footing out
Yeah,
there together. So at least let us all get our fair shot at it.
yeah, and I started thinking about it more and more. And to be quite honest, because I do this because I love it, but I would like to make a few bucks if possible. And some of these anthologies and some of these like online magazines or even print magazines, they underpay so much, if
Hmm.
not at all. And I'm like, you know what? I'd rather take the chance on me. If I get paid, it's because I put the work in. I'm the one out there hustling to get people to read this thing. I'll take that chance. I have no problem betting on myself. Um, and I had some success, like Old Spirits and Fine Tobacco was in an HWA collection, and Otone's favorite story, by the way, in that collection.
I did
Uh,
think of him when I was reading that one. It's a very him story.
he
I feel like
loves
it's like you and him and like some of the other HWA folks just hanging out.
he loves that story. He loves that story. He that was like the first thing he really was like going nuts telling everybody about, which of course I appreciate. But I just started thinking, I started collecting this massive short stories that were brand new. But I was like, I took a year and a half off from submitting to anything. And once again, Jim Chambers gave me this advice. He's like, don't worry about submitting, just spend a year writing. Just finish a story, get it to the way you want it, and just jump onto another one. And he goes, you'll sharpen your chops, so to speak. And I came out. I think I came out a much better writer for doing that. But as a result, I had all these stories, and I'm like, I don't want them sitting here. So I reached out to I was talking to Michael Dolan of the publisher and editor of Winding Road Stories, and he was just like, "Yeah, that sounds." He goes, when we can do it, when you're ready, let me know. I would love to take a look at it." And like, okay, so at least I had someone I knew I could send it to, because after I had it all put together, I'm like, okay, now the idea of finding a publisher would have been a little that's daunting in itself. But the fact that someone wanted to see it right away, and I sent it to him, and he had it for about a week and a half, and he sent me a email. Can you call me? And I'm just like, oh god damn, he's not gonna like this. And I called him. I'm like, yeah, sure, no problem. And he called him. And he's like, I love this. I want it. I'm like, great. So, but I mean, part of it was preserving some of the stories, and to be honest, a couple of stories were in one or two of the stories were in like these early anthologies I submitted to and got in, but they were, oh, it's a no paying market, but yeah, for the exposure and like a young writer, I fell for it. And to be honest, the first one, I got a great education out of it. You know, they sent me a contract, and look for this in the contract, look for that, and future contracts matched up to what they were telling me to look for. So I got that education. So I'm like, okay, I took something from it. But then they started asking me to do another one, and then another one. And like the sucker I am, I kept doing it. And then finally, I'm like, not for nothing. I don't know how much money you're making off of this, but even a token $20 would be nice. And so I stopped writing for them, but I obviously kept the rights to the stories. And not all of them made it into this book. I mean, I still have a whole bunch of stuff that could be reprinted that will go into something else later down the road. But this thing, once we decided to put it together, it came together pretty quickly. And then we got the incredibly multi-talented, so multi-talented it's actually sickening, Meg Ripley do the cover art.
Oh,
And
I love the cover art for this. I know that everybody says don't judge a book by its cover, but let's be real. It's the first thing we look at. You want
yep,
something that catches your eye, and it is eye-catching.
she she's so ridiculously talented. She's such a wonderful writer. And also, I knew she had an art background, but she started posting character sketches of her character from her book Necrology. And I, reached out to her. I'm like, these are amazing. And she's like, yeah, well, you remember I have a background. I'm like, yeah, I forgot about that. And so when we were starting to talk about this, Michael Dolan was like, do you have any idea who you want for the cover art? I'm like, can we ask Meg Ripley? And he's like, yeah, we can ask her. And she jumped on it, and she's just ridiculously talented. She's like, what do you want? I'm like, I have no idea. The only thing, because I mean, trying to pick something from all the stories, and the only thing my only criteria was that I wanted something retro looking, because my introduction into horror fiction was those old Alfred Hitchcock anthologies for kids, and I love those cover arts, so like Ghostly Gallery and all this. I love those so much, and I'm like, and I told her what I was, those examples. She, I know exactly what you're talking about, and that was the first sketch she sent us. I'm like, oh my god, that's it. It was. I'm so happy with the way it turned out. I got my author copies last week, and I'm just like, oh, thank God,
How
thank
does it
God.
feel holding them in your hand?
It's so bizarre. It's so bizarre because I mean, I work in a job that I work for a local municipality, and it's a good job. I've been there for 36 years, so it must be good. Um, but there's nothing creative about it in any way. I can look at, like, I was talking to somebody about this the other day. I'm like, at least a carpenter, like, he looks, yeah, I built that house. We crush wood and bury it in a landfill to keep. It's like shoveling sand against the tide. So the idea that I'm actually a published writer with now 2 books under my belt, it's mind blowing. I hope I never lose that feeling. I hope I never lose that feeling, because I've seen some people, and I definitely won't name names, but I've seen some people kind of like, yeah, it's a new book, blah blah. Like, how are you not jumping for joy? I don't get it.
It's
But
so
for me,
exciting. It's so exciting to see it in the physical world, to know that it's going to be accessible to so many other people. I
yeah,
can't wait for more people to get their hands on this, and I can't urge people enough to go back and read the Leeds Point Horror also. I had
yeah,
so much fun with that. That's where I really, you came out the gate swinging with that. And I was like, oh, swinging straight for my heart. We're doing haunted carnival, circus. It is like a straight trip through the grindhouse for me. Um, I had so much fun with that. I think I ripped through it in a lunch break, which,
oh,
like, I'm not a fast reader, but that
that
was like
makes
one and done for me.
that makes me so happy. I'm I love that story so much. I think every writer looking at his own stuff will see the flaws. So I'll say I'm 90% happy with it. Like, I want to go back and fix. To be honest, I want to go back and fix a few of the typos. There's a few typos that just stand out and glare at me. So I want to go back and do that. And I think after I'm done with what I'm doing now, that's going to be my next project. It shouldn't take too long, but I'm not changing anything verse wise or anything like that. Just fix where a comma should have been and that kind of thing. Yeah, that one that was supposed to be a Jersey Devil story, and it just changed and transformed. Me and my wife are a big lover. We love going Halloween season to haunted attractions. We'll go. We've gone to some taken some serious road trips to go to a haunted house. And the people when people, if you ever met my wife, she's like, my wife is a churchgoer. She's my wife is the sweetest woman there is. She's just everyone that meets her loves her. And then, like, when she started dating me, be like, you're bald with tattoos, you listen to heavy metal, you're in horror films, you're the exact opposite of her. Yeah, no. But she fell in love with going to these haunted houses, and now it's like we plan out. Okay, what are we doing this week? Like, we already have our plans set for October already.
Amazing.
It's really cool. But the Leeds Point Horror it was so much fun. I mean, I wanted to be a makeup effects artist before in high school. I wanted to in the worst way. I just sucked at it, to be quite honest. So there was no chance of me making a living at it. But this was this is my book form in book form. This is my Evil Dead.
It
I,
definitely shows. And again, I don't say that lightly. Anybody who listens to the podcast knows I'm not the easiest person to like draw in. Um, to call it an Evil Dead, I definitely think Leeds Point Horror has that. I say multiple times on the podcast, the more that a movie feels like a haunted attraction, the more drawn to it I am. And the Leeds Point Horror has that as well. So, like I said, this is all right up my alley.
so one person's telling me it had like jump scares in the book. I'm like, really? I'm like, I've never had a jump scare in a book, which is just amazing to me. I'm like, the fact that I made someone jump by something that I wrote was like, that's awesome. I had so much fun with that. It was, and the locate, I had a lot of family at one time in Colts Neck, New Jersey, which is this nice town. It's this nice high income town away from all the gasoline plants of Jersey. It's in the south part of Jersey. It's beautiful, but they have some long dark roads, and I'm like, I could picture this carnival on that road right there, and then it just flew from there. There was a lot of people kind of upset because I broke one of the cardinal rules. I killed a kid. I was like, I'm going to kill a bunch of them in this one.
The rules are constantly changing and they change for good reason.
Ah, no kids really died. I've yet to kill an animal in my books only because it never served a purpose. If,
Yeah.
if, if it serves a purpose, I'll do it. My my dog is upstairs and fine. He's good to go.
But I think what you're saying too about like building the atmosphere of places that really shines through in Altars and Abandoned Houses. Because born and raised on Long Island right here, and you too,
Yeah.
there's so much Long Island love in there. And I think just seeing like Long Island has some strange mythologies.
Yes, it does.
It's out there.
We had a witch trial.
We
We had
did,
a
and not enough people know about that.
nope. Well, she was found innocent, so that's why no one really harks on it. Yeah.
But I definitely think that you're staking your claim to add some new lore to Long Island.
I
You
hope
really paint these vivid images of the places that it takes place, or even just the mention of certain parts of the island where some of these stories take place. Now that I know, I can see them more vividly. I think that's also why I'm really drawn to it because you've captured Long Island at Halloween time in these haunted settings. Again, 3 for 3, checking all my boxes here.
thank you. I want to write a story set on a west end a east end train station, one of those desolate train stations that there's nothing around it, but you can smell the ocean and everything. I love Long Island. It's getting more and more expensive to live here and all that, and it's way too crowded at times. But there's no place like it. It really isn't. It's me and my wife talked about when we retire, are we going to relocate? And she's like, I don't know if we could find a place like this though. I'm like, we probably can't. It, we're, so, but Long, yeah, you're not wrong. There's some bizarre history in Long Island, and that's like Tone wrote an Amityville book, and I'll be honest, it's a fantastic book. It's I'm so happy for him because I didn't think it was possible because Amityville is so pounded into subconscious. You just say Amityville, and even if you never saw a movie, you know exactly what you're talking about.
Yup.
And I wanted to avoid that in the worst way. I might write. I would love to write something like a fictionalized, very exaggerated Ricky Casso story. I would really like to do that, but and I don't like playing around with people's tragedy. As much as fascinated by stuff like that, but Long Island's got enough weird shit. There's that book, Weird New York, where
Yep.
Long Island has a big section in that book. Bigfoot in Riverhead? Oh, yeah, sure. No problem. Okay.
Is there any Long Island lore that you were particularly drawn to when writing this, or anything that really sparked this has to be a Long Island story?
Kings Park was a big one. Kings Park as a location is a big one. It's still it looms over the North Shore of that part of the island. It's fascinating. Yeah, I've been inside the build. I've been inside the main building twice.
For
Um,
just an exploration or
one time, yes. Another time we were walking. Not we, me. I would because it's a nice place to go for a walk, and
it is. It's a
you want
beautiful area.
yeah, you want to kill an hour and you're in that area. Yeah, go for a walk there. It's a nice area. And I heard somebody calling out for help, and I like you know, because there's a lot of broken windows in the building. Sometimes the wind goes through. You're like, yeah, I really hurt. Hey, I hear you out there. Can you come give me a hand? The guy stepped on something and his foot went through the floor.
Ooh.
And like literally, I opened like pried open the door and the guy was just in there with his foot in the ground. You know, I looked, making sure there was no one else in there about to jump me,
Yup.
help the guy out. But yeah, I went in there once and we got up to about the third floor, and I was just like, nah, these floors are not stable, dude. I'm going back down. This is
No.
no, it's just it's terrible. It's awful. I see when I go there, I see the graffiti at the top. I'm like, what lunatic went up there?
Right?
It just makes no sense to me.
It's one of those places that's just like it really needs to be its own myth and legend. It's truly unsafe to explore at this point,
Mm-hmm.
let alone all the hauntings and the lore behind it, the squatters who exist within it.
Yeah.
Just the structure itself is unsafe. It should just be admired from afar.
There's a reason why there's a 12-foot fence around pretty much every building.
Yeah.
There's a reason for it. And yeah, I'm at an age in my life where I'm not taking chances like as far as like ghostly lore, there's in St. James, I think it's called Northwell's Mansion. It's in St. James on North Country Road, and supposedly that's haunted. We were in there for I used to teach at a karate school up there, and the guys who owned the karate school had they would be part of the Chamber of Commerce, so they were sent. We got to set the place up as a Halloween for a Halloween party.
I love that.
And like, you have to sell tickets to the public. We just had all our friends buy tickets. So it was our Halloween party. And like, we had like a voodoo room upstairs, an exorcist room, and all that. But when we were setting up, I heard somebody walk behind me that wasn't behind. There was no one behind me. And when I said something to the girl, like there was like a girl that like let us in and let us out. When I said, she goes, "Oh yeah, this place is haunted." She goes, "You're not the only person." I mean, it wasn't anything freaky, but like for a second, like the little hairs on my neck which went up. I'm like, okay. And for a shaved head guy, there's not many hairs back there, so it doesn't happen too often. But I that was my time working in St. James had a lot to do with some of the stories in here. Old Spirits and Fine Tobacco was definitely one of those stories. That was definitely based on my time working up there.
Old Spirits and Fine Tobacco definitely felt like it. You spent a really nice amount of time building this family history. I had to second guess. I was like, is this based on somebody real out here? Is this, something specific out here?
Well, the setting was based on something real. The setting of three men having drinks, and because that's something that me and some friends from the karate school used to do. And the setting and the setup were real because my one friend was recently divorced, and he was a good looking guy. I mean, he was a fairly good looking guy, but he had a very specific type of potential mate that he wanted. And so he would make jokes that he actually had women chained up in the basement. And then we went over one night, and I was sitting on the couch. I'm just looking around, and once again, the little hairs on the neck went up. I'm like, there's somebody in the house. Now we just finished going over our guns. We were looking at his gun collection. We he was at that time he was a third degree black belt in like Shotokan karate. My friend Frank was a black belt in I think it was Taekwondo, and I was getting ready for my black belt. I'm like, did someone break into the house? This is crazy because I just felt feeling like what a bad place. We have guns and we all know karate. We're bad spot. And I said, I'm like, there's someone in the house, and they're like, and they just looked at me. And okay, fine. I went back and I'm drinking my whiskey. They're drinking their scotch. And I looked upstairs. I looked at like the staircase and I saw a shadow walk by. I'm like, there is somebody up there. And all of a sudden, the owner got up and went upstairs, and me and my friend Frank are looking at each other like, what the hell? What? And he comes down with this girl. I'm like, he did have somebody else.
Jeez.
It turned out that she in her family, men and women didn't mix in social occasions, so she was just hanging out upstairs. But it was just, that's how the story just started. And then, you know, one thing about St. James and Head of the Harbor, I don't know if you've ever actually been up there. Beautiful mansions,
Hmm.
beautiful, and that's where supposedly Mary's grave is up there and all that
Yeah, I've
stuff.
been out there.
Yeah, so that had a lot to do with that story as well. I enjoy that story a lot. I enjoy that story a lot. It's one of the few I go back and look at once in a while.
There's a really nice tension build in that story.
Thank
I
you.
mean, you do a great job across the board, but that one, I had to keep second guessing myself. What direction are we taking? What's going to happen next? Who's right about this here? You also do a great job of making your characters uncomfortable. Because all three of them go through these moments of discomfort, and we're there for the ride. We're like, okay, but like, who's correct? Who needs to get out now, and who needs to stick around?
Yeah, that was definitely intentional because nothing distracts me more I'll go to film, especially in a horror film where there's just a character is just nothing but like for jokes.
Hmm.
I'm like I know everyone loves Scream. I'm like indifferent to it. Like the character of Stu was never threatening to me in any way, shape, or form. He's just too much. The character is too much of a clown, and so like the only character like that I ever kind of really kind of like, okay, I like that character, was Hudson and Bill Paxton in Aliens.
Okay, yeah,
But he's also doing it because he's terrified. So you're
yeah,
like, okay, I get it. But that I just can't imagine. I don't know too many people that would be in that situation in the story that wouldn't be discomforted by it.
right.
I don't know anyone that brave or that foolish. You know, even though even if it's just the bare beginning of that story, someone sitting in your living room, hey, there's someone in the house. How do your hackles not rise at that?
Yeah,
So, yeah, that was intentional. That was intentional, and I'm glad. I'm glad. I'm always happy when people say something like that because it makes me feel I did my job.
you've definitely gone above and beyond your job here. I gotta say, I'm 20, I think 20 books into my reading list for the year, and this is definitely number one right now.
Oh Jesus, thank you so much. Thank you so
I'm
much.
really excited for people to be able to get their hands on this early
Thank
June. Um, where are people going to be able to get their hands on Altered and Abandoned Houses?
Amazon. We're
Okay.
we're feeding the monster. Yeah, Amazon. Yeah. There's a pre-sale right now for the ebook, and I'll be happy if everyone, you know, 1,000 ebooks are sold. I'll be very happy. The book came, the hard copy came out beautiful. Uh, I'm I'm very. The idea it's gonna be sitting on someone's shelf really makes me happy. I there was a lot. One thing I'll say about Michael Dolan, he puts love into the books that he produces. Um, there are some publishers who do a great job, but he puts his heart and soul into it, and you see that in the books he's put out. One of the reasons I wanted to work with him because he re-released Otone's last short story collection, and he did a beautiful job of it. Yeah, okay, I'm good. Uh, I'm good. Yeah, I really hope not only financially, but I really hope that people give the hard copy a chance. But if they're like me, a lot of my new writers that when I go for a new writer, I try to get the ebook first because books are expensive. I get it.
Yeah.
I get it. I and if I like the ebook, I'll go out and buy the book. I have no I have books on my shelves that are definitely in my Kindle too. I just wanted the hard copy.
I do a lot of that too, where I'll read something first on Kindle, and if it really strikes me, then I'm going to pick up a hard copy. I want it on my shelf. There's
Yeah,
something special about having a physical copy. And I really especially believe that when it comes to collections of short stories. Um, I have a whole bookshelf that's just dedicated to short story, ghost story collections. I can't wait for this to make its way onto that bookshelf.
That makes me so.
Um, it's the type of thing where I can see people telling these around a campfire. I can see people building Long Island lore off of these stories.
God, I hope so. God, I hope so. The idea of that just, I have this like mental image of like a Boy Scout leader taking his kids out for a camping trip. Okay, and then starts reading Sweet Number 9 because there's nothing profane in that story.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a couple of stories that I'm like, yeah, I wouldn't read that one to the kids, but that one, I like. There's nothing profane in it, so they can go for it. I just love that idea. I just love that idea. There was a Halloween store out in the East End that called Haunted Props.
Oh
Um,
yeah, I love haunted props.
Unfortunately, he's closed down for now.
Oh
The building
no.
got, the building got condemned, and if you were there, are we really shocked?
Not entirely.
He's looking for a new spot. I talked to him at Lich, and he puts little updates on his Facebook every once in a while. But he was trying to put something together with like a bonfire with people doing readings around it and all that. But I think the insurance kind of scared him a little bit with people sitting there with a fire and all that. So
Yeah, we talked to him about doing a film festival there too, but the insurance was
yeah,
it's too difficult to navigate.
those damn insurance companies. But yeah, that idea, I can't wait. I hope so. I hope so. I'm the um the 27th of June. I'm doing an event in Sayville, bookstore called Tiny Raccoon Books. The weekend before 4th of July. I'm gonna do a reading. Jim Chambers is gonna do a Q&A with me, and then gonna read two stories. I haven't decided which ones yet, but I'm going to a 4th of July party the following week. I'm hoping like, hey, you want to read one of your stories around a fire? Gather up, kids. We're gonna
I
have some
hope
fun.
you get that
I
moment.
hope so. I hope so. I'm not counting on it, but I hope so. Reading
Keep
for
a
a bunch
copy in your back pocket.
reading for a bunch of drunks should be awesome.
But that's one of the things that I love about short story collections. There truly is something in there for everyone. I say it
Oh,
about anthology movies, I say it about things like Creepshow and Tales from the Crypt. You know, if something's not your cup of tea, you get to move on to something else and see what is. You get to a little taste of everything. And I think for an author like yourself who's just had your first novella out and now you have a short story collection, people are going to get a taste for a little bit of everything that you do.
I fully agree, and I'm also very happy that also anthologies are making like non-themed anthologies are making a comeback. They're
Yep.
just taking, and because I used, I'm a couple years older than you, but I grew up in a time when like Dark Forces was a major anthology, Prime Evil, and there would be like 20 stories and none of them are alike. But it's just like that's how like Prime Evil was a perfect one because that's how I first read Thomas Tessier, rest in peace. That's how I read David Morrell because I didn't, going out and buying all the books, like especially when you're like 15 years old, I didn't have money to burn when I was 15. And like we said before, books are expensive. So, short story collections and anthologies, you want to read Ramsey Campbell? There you go. Pick that one up. And if you like what you read, you're off and running. Short stories. I have a special spot in my heart for short stories. The first short story I read was Yours Truly, Jack the Ripper by Robert Bloch when I was 8. And it was in one of those Alfred Hitchcock collections I talked about earlier.
And I think isn't it in Desolate Houses or something?
That one was in Sinister Spies.
Okay.
But yeah, he had like haunted house. Alfred Hitchcock presents Haunted Houseful and all this stuff. But they were just basically reprints of Lovecraft and all that, and Block.
Yeah.
But that story just because even at 8 years old, before we became like so serial killer chick, like chic. So everyone loves a serial killer. Everyone knew who Jack the Ripper was.
Yep.
And that story just fascinated me. I remember reading that the first weekend I read like 8 times, and it's the first time, and that just started my love affair with horror fiction. So I have a special spot in my heart for short stories. I think they're a wonderful form. And when I look at someone like Teal James Glenn who sells short story after short story, I'm just like, thank God guys like him are out there.
Yeah, he's got a track record like you can't believe.
And he's well deserved. He's a fantastic writer. He's one of the most entertaining writers I read. Anytime he puts something out, I try to get my hands on it. But thank God there's people out there to do that, because to me it's one of the most vital parts of horror fiction. It's also one of the most underread.
Absolutely.
It was very nice to see Chris Golden and Brian Keene's Stand anthology hit the New York Times bestseller. It's like that. Of course, King has most to do with that, his name, but the fact that it went New York Times bestseller list, a short story anthology, that's amazing. That's amazing.
And
Thank God
speaking
for
of Keenan Golden, I just finished All Hallows by Chris
that.
Golden. And so now I've got All Hallows by Chris Golden and Altars in Abandoned Houses, and it is still my number one for this year.
Thank you so much. That means so much to me. And that's probably my favorite Golden. So
I think so also. I loved All Hallows.
that was a lot of fun. That was a lot of fun, that book. But thank you very much for that. That means so much to me. That means so much to me.
I know you had mentioned earlier the Creep Show being one of the anthology type series that you're most excited by. Do you have any other influences that really inspire you to keep doing short form content like short stories?
Um, I I mentioned Robert Bloch before. Bloch, I'm a big lover of his short fiction. More his short fiction than his novels, to be quite honest.
I've
Um,
only read his short fiction and Psycho, and I love his short fiction.
yeah, he had that he had that sense of humor that just he'd make you laugh at a severed hand. It's just like, come on. A lot of them, it's Joe Lansdale was a huge one. His short fiction just phenomenal. Andrew Vox was a big one. I enjoyed his novels. Mostly he wrote crime. Unfortunately, he's not with us anymore. But his crime novels were horror novels because they just delved with some of the most dark shit possible. His short fiction they were always like a little bit beyond flash fiction, but they just punched so hard. It's like, oh, like he had one. As far as I know, he only had one short story collection, and it's not a big book. I think it was like 220 pages. It took me 2 weeks to read it because I read one like, okay, I can't read another one for today.
Right.
Um, Elizabeth Massey is another one. Her short fiction just blows my mind. Um, I'm excited for the new. I mentioned Jim Chambers, another one. Probably Jim's probably my favorite short story writer. Period.
It's phenomenal. We're so lucky to be surrounded by so many great authors in just our little New York horror writers branch.
Carol Geisander is another one.
Hmm.
Phenomenal. Rebecca Cuthbert, big fan. There's so many. There, but um, there's one Canadian writer named Julia Jackson who wrote this book called Powder and Poison, and it's a horror, murder, mystery, ghost story set right before the French Revolution that I was just really impressed by. I was like, wow, this is really cool. Um, the one thing is, I read so much. I read so much, and I go back and forth between old stuff and new stuff. I try to keep up on the new stuff pretty religiously. But I always jump back into Ramsey Campbell. I jump back into Jack Ketchum was a huge influence on me. Elizabeth Engstrom, I never read much of her short fiction. Her novels were just phenomenal. Andy Davis, another one. There's so many. I mean, I could use all the bandwidth just talking about writers I love. Um, and
I
as
think
far
that's especially important with short fiction too, because people don't realize, people go straight for the novels. And it's like you were saying before, you want to taste for a bunch of different authors, pick up a collection, pick up an anthology, and that's going to give you, this condensed idea of what people are capable of. I'll
yeah,
even to the point I made before with reading Altars and Abandoned Houses side by side with Christopher Golden's All Hallows. These are both beautiful Halloween stories, and they really capture the essence of Halloween and that essence of community. And in reading Altars and Abandoned Houses, I got the experience of, you know, all of that in less. It was these bite-sized pieces where I can say, yeah, I've had that very similar taste to what I'm getting in the full story of All Hallows.
Yeah. I I grew up a horror film like nut. My first movie going experience was Jaws when I was 3, and it's only because my parents couldn't get a babysitter and they thought I'd fall asleep at the drive-in, but I watched the whole thing. Um, but like I grew up in a time when when they were like Twilight Zone reruns were on prime time. There was a show in the 80s called The Dark Room with James Colburn hosted it as like a horror host. That had some great episodes. Tales from the Crypt in the late 80s. But I've always been like the first novel I read. The first novel I read was the novelization of Halloween because my mother, for some reason, wouldn't take a 6-year-old to see Halloween, so I had to read the novelization, and I followed it up with Salem's Lot, and then I followed it up with the autobiography of Linda Lovelace. I read whatever was on my mother's shelf. So I didn't really get to develop my own taste until I actually started working a part-time job. And then I started finding the Ramsey Campbells, the Clive Barkers. Barker was a big one. More definitely his short stories, more so than his novels. His novels are great, but his Books of Blood was just mind altering.
Yeah, I'm about to start Cabal, so I can't wait to
Wonderful,
dive into that. But I'm
wonderful.
mostly familiar with Barker's short stuff.
Yeah,
I've obviously done the Hellraiser stuff,
of
Hellbound
course.
Heart and Scarlet Gospels, but
His stuff was so dense, and like the Great and Secret Show is like it's a wonderful book, but I'm like okay, I'm not because I'll do like 2 or 3 books at a time. That was one of those books like okay, everything else is just going over here, and this is one, and it was well worth it. It was a wonderful book, but short stories to me, short stories to me are just like I enjoy the fights, and I love a good drawn out battle. I love a good flash knockout though, and that's
yeah,
what a short story is to me. I'm like, you get me in, get me 20 pages, slap me around. Um, John Lannon, another one. Oh my God, Lang. How did I forget Lannon? He's insanely talented, and just he crams so much in there. It's just like I like I the highest compliment anyone can ever give me is a Pulp Fiction horror writer. I love it. I'm happy to be. I'll be that for the rest of my life. I'm happy with it.
I love the pulps. That's like you mentioned Teal James Glenn before.
Yeah,
Very pulpy. I love all of it.
yeah. Lannon is. I'm going to English lit. I'm going to English, and I love every second of it. I love every second. It's the one thing about short fiction is you can get so many different things out of so many prospects from different writers on the same story. Like it's just like there's a reason why there's like, oh well, we got another zombie anthology. But show me the table of contents.
Yeah,
The table of contents picks my interest. Okay, I'll buy it. If you give me the same, I guarantee in that short story collection, there's no Dawn of the Dead story.
hmm
It's their unique take on zombies or whatever. But that to me is where I get excited about short fiction.
It's
And
exactly why I can't recommend enough people, even if you start at Suite Number 3, to have a brand new take on a classic monster. It's
that,
hard to come by, but you only get that in taking a chance on new authors and taking a chance on short stories.
yeah, yeah,
It's where the ideas live. It's a proof of concept.
I couldn't imagine trying to stretch that story any bigger than it was. Yeah, I just th- th- there's just certain things that just you go to a concert, you go to a concert, you want to dance and have a good time, or you might be in the mood to go see a jam band where they play a 40-minute guitar solo. Yeah, you can mix it up, but it's just for me, I I really hope that we get on a short story collection anthology wave that really just energize it. But let's see what happens. See what
I've
happens
been
with that.
liking the uptick. I think we're seeing a lot more of it, and I think we're seeing a lot of the smaller indie presses have a nice resurgence with that as well. I'm seeing more
Yeah,
and more calls for anthologies. I'm seeing them start to pay better. I'm seeing the indie presses are really carrying it right now, and I couldn't be happier.
absolutely, absolutely, and it's and it's great. It's great to see people like Rachel Harrison do very well. It's great to she did a reading with Otone at the KGB bar a couple months ago, and I went and I'll be honest, I went for Otone. He's my friend. But I enjoy her writing, and she read a short story to just knock my socks off. I was like, oh my god, that's so goddamn good. It's and then you have and short stories. You can also take chances. You can take chances you can't take in novels.
Yeah,
I read one story, and I can't remember for the life of me the story, but it was like from the point of view of a maggot, and it's like
cool.
how fun is this? And I'll be honest, it wasn't the best short story, but I appreciated the swing it was taking.
Yeah.
If it was a novel, I'd be like, okay, this is a little too much for me. I'm not reading 200 pages of a maggot, but okay. But I love them. I love them. I don't think I'll ever really abandon them. I haven't written any brand new short stories in a while because of what I'm working on now, but I plan on jumping back into them full feet very soon.
I'm excited for you to be able to release more of your older short stories and for whatever new ideas come your way. As a largely horror movie podcast, I hope that some of our filmmakers out there are listening and you do get your adaptations of some of these stories. I hope that Altars and Abandoned Houses becomes its own Tales from the Crypt, Trick or Treat. Even if it's a standalone movie anthology, we get a good handful of these adapted we kind of touched on earlier. You can take the theme of Halloween, you can take the theme of the mortuary, you can take the theme of the roadside stuff and make a singular movie with just those, or give us a series.
Your lips to God's ears. I hope so. I hope so. That'd be wonderful. I'd be so excited. I had like a fantasy of someone would try to like adapt the Leeds Point horror, and I'm like, all I would want to do is just go and look at the monster they built.
The
That's
monster,
all
the set, Leeds Point would be so much
I would
fun.
just be like, all I want to do is just a day pass to go to the FX studio and look at the monster. Like, yeah, that's cool.
Need a
That's
hell of a budget for that one.
yeah, I know, nuts.
All in time, all in time. We start them off with some of the short stories here.
Sounds like a plan to me. Bring it on, bring it on.
Before we wrap out, John, I just want you to one more time let everybody know what they can expect for the release of Altars and Abandoned Houses, uh, dates, locations that you're going to be at. I know you mentioned doing reading in Sayville. I think that's going to be phenomenal. Um, yeah, any more opportunities like that? Anywhere that our audience can follow you and your journey.
Well, you can follow me on Instagram, J period P period Collins. For some reason, I couldn't get John Collins. That's where I'm most active. I do have Facebook, John P. Collins, and that also links over to Threads, which I really don't use. The book comes out June 2nd at we're gonna premiere at StokerCon. I'm doing a reading on Thursday. I haven't decided what story yet. It might be Suite Number 3. It might be. Um, it'll be at StokerCon, and then the ebook you could pre-order right now. You go to Amazon, and the pre-order is I'm speaking over my tongue. The ebook pre-order is available there. Like I said, June 27th at Tiny Raccoon Books in Sayville, New York, at 7 o'clock. I'll be doing a reading and a Q&A, and ending with a reading. And come if you're in the area, come on down, hang out. But hopefully, a bunch of cool people will be there. I'm sure there will be. And the only two other solid commitments is I'll be at Spooktastic in Massachusetts at the end of September. I believe it's the 27th. And I'll be at Horror at Hudson the first weekend of November as a guest of honor. I can't wait. That I've never on Spooktastic will be my first time, and I heard nothing but good things. Horror at Hudson I went to last year and had a blast. It's basically, I don't know if you're familiar with it. It's basically a horror readers retreat, and they pulled in a bunch of authors that hang out with them, and I met so many cool people. on top of the people I already knew. It was one of the better. It was one of my best book related weekends I can honestly say I ever had. So I'm really looking forward to that.
It's so cool to go from having attended last time that you went to being a guest of honor this time that you go.
It like we said before, it's such a welcoming community. Because I mean, I like everyone in my personal life is like very happy for me and like, oh yeah, I'll buy the book and they'll buy the book. Maybe they'll read it. I hope they will. But being able to talk with you, being able to talk with Otone, being able to talk with Jim Chambers, or we could actually talk about the stuff we love. And it's I don't get that in my like my family. Like my wife is like, I'm very happy for you. No, I'm not reading it. But it's just like it's you need that community. I don't care what hobby it is. If you like model airplanes, you want to talk about people who love model airplanes. I like talking to people who love horror. Long Island Convention of Horror. I had such a great time talking to people.
Yeah,
It was
it
it was
really is. It does take a village. I mean,
yeah.
writing is so solitary, and in order to keep that motivation going, you need people who support you. You need people who are going to help you keep pushing through some of the more grueling aspects of this industry.
Oh God, so many nights I sat here while just sitting there looking at the same sentence for 20 minutes, just like how could I say he went to the door any better than I just said it? It's part of like StokerCon is I'm looking forward to the 8.5 hour ride with Jim Chambers to Pittsburgh
Yeah,
because this is the conversation we'll have, and you'll inject some music and stuff into it and stuff like that, but we'll always go back to books and movies and stuff like that. My tastes are sometimes a little more extreme than his. I'll tell him like a story title idea and he'll just shake his head like, Jesus Christ, John. I always seem to push Jim at that little bit of a limit where he's like, yeah, yeah, yeah. So I appreciate and love this community so much. I've been in a lot of cool clubs. This is the best club I've ever been in.
I
Period.
hope you get to see an outpouring of that same love and appreciation as you put your work out there more.
I hope so too. I really really just want people to just enjoy it. No, it's real. I mean, paychecks are great and all that. Nothing means more to me as a writer. I can't imagine too many other writers when someone says, "Hey, I read so and so and I loved it." It just means so much to me. It means so much to me. It really does.
Well, I can't encourage our listeners any more than to really just go out and make sure that you're either pre-ordering or showing up to the event in Sayville or Spooktastic or Horror on the Hudson. Get a chance to meet John in person and really, like I said, experience this work because there's no other word for it than that. Um, but I hope you have an amazing StokerCon and an amazing release with this book. Um,
I hope you make it out to Sable if you can. I would love to see you.
Yeah, absolutely. That sounds fantastic. I am also considering going up to Spooktastic. I'm talking to a couple friends about going out there. Um,
I've
I
heard
just
nothing
also
but
heard
great
good
things.
things.
I've
Yeah.
heard nothing but good things about it. And the lineup I'm seeing that she's putting together, uh, she's a writer named Melissa Alessi. I think I use the proper pronoun. Um, the lineup that has been put together is just like, as a reader, I'm in heaven.
Yeah.
I'm just like, yeah, okay. I'm like, that's so cool. That's
Events
so,
like that, I really lose myself. I'd spent so much money just buying books at the Long Island Convention of Horror,
I
and
know.
that's why I'm 20 deep already.
I know. I'm gonna come back to the swag alone. They give you a lot of swag. The swag alone is gonna be 20 pounds of books. I can the dealer room. Oh God, I'll be broke. How can I be broke?
Well, John, thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you so much for sharing Altars and Abandoned Houses with us.
Uh,
Like I said, I can't wait for our listeners to get their hands on their copies as well.
Anthony, thank you so much. I really, really appreciate it. I'm so happy you enjoyed it. I'm so happy. It makes it worthwhile for me. Yeah, I dread the day when someone tells me that something sucks, but someone will. I know someone will. It happens. It happens.
I think you got some time before you hear that.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I appreciate that.
Before we end our episodes, we always like to start with a fear of the day. I'll give you a phobia and feel free to take a crack at what it is. I usually try and relate them a little bit to the episode. I always say if it exists, somebody's afraid of it. So there's a phobia for everything.
Yes, there is.
So our fear of the day is domatophobia.
I'm gonna say fear of pumpkins.
Not quite.
Oh. Hmm. Fear of the fall?
Not quite.
All right, I'll give you one more shot. Fear of masks.
Nope.
All right, I give up.
Domatophobia is the fear of houses. It's an anxiety that people tend to
Ooh,
develop at the uncertainty of what lies within.
ooh, I like that. You
So
like
I
you
thought
said,
that was very fitting.
there's a fear for everything. I didn't, yeah, yeah. I know someone is afraid of olives, though. That's
I'll have to look up what that phobia is. That'll really
it's
stump
so
John and Anna.
strange to say because I mean, yeah, she came in my house and she's like, "There's no olives here, are there?" I'm like, "I don't know. I don't eat olives."
And as always, at the Hauntsville Cryptcast, we end our episodes with a recommendation. And our recommendation for today is to pick up your copy of Altars and Abandoned Houses by John P. Collins Jr.
And I'm just gonna recommend in November, pick up Meg Ripley's Woodfest, the follow up to her book Necrology.
Would you recommend people start with Necrology as well?
Oh, absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely. But she's like I said, she did the cover art for my book, and she's talented beyond words. It's sick. It's honestly kind of sickening how talented she is. But yeah, pick up Meg Ripley's two books. Yeah, the Necrology and Woodfest, and you won't be disappointed.
Thanks for that recommendation, John. And thank you for tuning into the Hauntsville Cryptcast. I'm Anthony.
And I'm John Collins.
Happy haunting.